Welcome to another segment of Development Update, and for you astute viewers, you might be able to see that we're up at the Shelf, North Weymouth, and a lot of activity up here. This is getting a lot of notoriety and a lot of attention, and we're here to talk about what's happening with the Wessagusset Walk project. And with me is Bob Luongo from our planning department, Steve Reilly from Recreation. I wish it was a little warmer today.
It's all right, we're getting there.
And just figured we'd recap a little history on what got us here, and you guys can talk about where we're at. But one of the things that used to kind of make me wonder when I was in the Senate, representing 8 coastal towns, Weymouth was one of the only community I represented that never sought out an seaport economic development grant. And when I came in, met with different town boards, when I met with the waterfront committee, they had indicated that they'd been kind of quiet, and I said, well, we got to have you guys live up to your charge, and once you guys get back to me and suggest a project that would warrant seeking out funding from the Seaport Economic Development Council. And what they immediately informed me was that this particular project had been identified by the town in the 1970s, about 1979, I think was the first time it popped up on the town's waterfront master plan. And I said, well, after they briefed me, I said, it sounds like maybe a worthy project. Let's put a grant application in with Seaport Development and see what happens. And Nick Buellens, then our grant writer working under Bob Luongo, put together very hastily a grant application. We went down, made a presentation down before the council in Fall River, and we were successful in getting a $180,000 grant for the feasibility study and engineering work. So we were on our way. Extremely complicated permitting with this project, as you might imagine. How many regulatory agencies do you know off the top of your head might have been involved?
It could have been 6 or 7 between feds and the state.
And I was thinking probably closer to 12, but a lot. And it was a tedious exercise. The permitting process, engineering process took probably 5 times longer than the actual construction's going to take. So once we got through that part of the process, we put together another grant application, this time under our new grant writer, Leilani Dalpy, and we went before Seaport Economic again, and we got a construction grant, and I'm going to break down the numbers for us. That was $1 million. As the cost took shape, we had to obviously look at other funding sources, and we were very fortunate that some money came through from the federal government through Congressman Lynch's efforts in securing an earmark for $4.8 million. We also pieced together the remaining amount of money from the mitigation monies we received from Enbridge on the compressor station, and we were able to come up with enough money to get this project done. It's underway. And as we tape this segment, we are late March of 25. So far so good. The feedback pretty much we're getting is positive from residents. The impacts, for the most part, even though work is occurring in people's backyards, hasn't been too bad. And I think they're on budget and on schedule. And maybe get the perspective of Bob, who's really the day-to-day guy overseeing this, along with John McLeod and Steve Reilly. Your perspective, Bob,
Sure.
So far, and how things are going.
Yeah, well, we hope it stays on budget, but there are some factors, soil conditions that we're finding out exist that we didn't know about, but we're still moving forward with the project. So basically, just to refresh everyone's memory on this, this is a coastal restoration project. It's really a resiliency project in which we're revegetating. We've cleared the embankment, which the town owns. We're going to revegetate it with appropriate species for this part of the world. And then we're going to rebuild the rock revetment. And on top of the rock revetment, we're adding a pedestrian walkway. The pedestrian walkway will start at the old beach, or Wessagusset Beach, and be about 500 linear feet of walkway. And then there will be a ramp system that will take people down to the beach.
That walkway at the at Lane Beach is on grade, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. It's just right on the beach, exactly. And there'll be a ramp system taking people down to the beach and over to Lane's Beach. But we are restoring the entire embankment, the 1,000 linear feet, if you will, of embankment from the old beach at Wessagusset all the way over just before Lane's Beach. And so that really will stabilize the embankment as well. Project was scheduled to start after Labor Day. Unfortunately, it didn't get off the ground until December. The project is slated to close down at the end of May, but since the contractors asked if they could work over the summer just for the pouring of the walkway along the revetment. We've talked with Steve Reilly, who has recreation programs going on, and I think Steve feels confident it's not going to interfere with any of the recreational projects, so it will just be pouring of the walkway. And with that period, the contractor can do it. We hope to finish up the project sometime in the fall of this year. So we should be pretty well set by hopefully the end of the fall season, have this completed there.
And from a recreation standpoint, Steve Reilly, your thoughts?
So, like Bob mentioned, originally we did talk about trying to wrap things up construction-wise by like Memorial Day weekend, the unofficial start to the summer season. But recognizing the progress that's already being made, kind of being anxious about getting this through to completion, we met with the contractor and discussed whether or not to work throughout the summer. And we came to the realization it can be done safely, first and foremost, but also in a way that's not going to negatively impact activities at the beaches. We're going to make some accommodations with the contractor to make sure that our beach equipment that we use every week to clean up the beach gets onto the beach and is able to. DPW does that every Saturday and Sunday. That they can still get out and do that we still have accessibility onto the beach, which was important, but again, that everything can be done in a safe manner. And it does appear that we can do it, so just keep moving forward. Everything's going really well. I think, the beaches have become so popular. I think ever since COVID, when we made the decision to keep the beaches open, a lot of the South Shore discovered our little hidden area over here, and the beaches have looked great. DPW does a bang-up job on cleaning things up weekly, and I think just this walkway and cleaning up of the shelf and the vista and all of this stuff just adds to all of it. So the sooner we can get it done, the better.
And from a recreation standpoint, when it's completed, it's a nice tie-in with some of the work DPW did with this trail that's been cut through, so you can walk from Lane along the beach, go up to Great Hill.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It enhances the kind of walkability of the area, I think, and looking forward to that part of it. We got a lot of other improvements we're going to talk about a little later that are happening over at the Lane Beach side of this part of town, between the River Street project, between the dredging.
Parking lot.
And once all of the staging is done for that, we'll address the parking lot aesthetics, which I know we had a lot of complaints about with the Jersey barriers.
I don't know. I think everyone's happy with Jersey barriers now. I think everyone's bought in on those. They finally have accepted them as part of the community.
You're joking, right?
No. Of course I'm joking. I want them out of here as much as anybody.
So, one of the why don't you talk about briefly what's happening over there? We can get into that now if Jeff would like us to.
So I think a lot of that's still in, and I think Bob would agree, we're still very much in the planning phase. We're working closely with the engineering department at our DPW, working with our outside engineers to kind of finalize some plans. There's some seawall work that needs to take place, some work along River Street that needs to take place, and ultimately the parking lot dredging. It all kind of ties together, and truthfully ties together with this same project. It's all coastal resiliency and the effects of rising.
So one of the things
Tides
that
and
is
such.
actually in the works is the elevation work. We're going to raise River Street to solve that flooding problem. Do you know the timeline off the top of your head on that, Bob?
I don't really have yet an idea of construction. Obviously, we need to find the funds for the construction. We're still, I think.
We're going to sell the Jersey barrier, so that'll help.
Yeah. So we don't have a timeline yet on the construction of that.
We do know that that's in design and engineering now.
Right.
And
Right.
I know that's about $249,000 for that work. So once we have the design work done and we can prepare that to go out to bid, we'll have a sense of timing on that. That is being, we know that we'll be probably utilizing a state grant for the preparedness grant, I think, for that, right? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I think that's correct on that.
So that's the FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Grant.
Right, that's federal.
For the technical name of that. So that's coming from the federal government. The dredging is a little more complicated. We'll talk about that in a later development update. We're running into some issues with the state on that, but that's coming in down the pipeline. And once all of that work gets settled out, we'll work on the aesthetics of the parking lot and
absolutely
fine-tune the gates at the parking lot.
Yes, we will.
Do we want to wrap up, before we do wrap up, any other thoughts on what's happening here at the shelf? You want to talk a little more about the plantings and how that stabilizes the hill and some of the problems that occurred here recently with the hill itself?
Yeah. So we did, over the past 10 years, we've had a couple of failures on the embankment. They've been private failures, and unfortunately the private owners were responsible for the restoration of the embankment, but some of them actually collapsed. So it really is important that we really stabilize it. So one of the things is we've cut all the trees down that are on the embankment. Those trees destabilize the embankment because if they fall over, they could cause more issues. So there will be no more trees on the embankment. It will be more native species that will really hold the soil together and create problems that sometimes embankments have. The embankment we have here are not as unstable as the ones that you see on Cape Cod or Martha's Vineyard. I think recently a house just had to be destroyed because it was ready to fall over one of the embankments. So we're not at that stage here. But clearly, the important part of this is making sure we get the right soil mix on the embankment and the right vegetation on the embankment as well. And that is a separate part of the contract. There's a separate subcontractor that will be doing the plantings on that. Our Conservation Commission, Andrew Holton, our administrator, is intimately involved with this project on a weekly basis with us because we don't want anything to happen, especially during the construction phase. The shelf where we're sitting now, we have condemned stairs. We're going to have a brand new set of stairs going down to the beach from the shelf. It will be safe and secure, so that's going to be a plus. I do want to add one thing. There's been some chatter on Facebook about the piles of soil that are at the Wessagusset parking lot. So unfortunately what's happening is we discovered a lot of clay on the beach. Clay is not a stable basis, especially to lay the new rock revetment. So we have to extract all that clay. It's an anticipated cost. It's going to add to the cost of the contract, but it needs to be done. In the meantime, we've stored some of that material on the Wessagusset parking lot. It is not contaminated material. It's covered so nothing will blow away, but it's not contaminated. And
Don't believe everything you read on Facebook.
Right, and so we are going to have that trucked away within the next month to 2 months, and that will be gone. But if there's any concern about the public about the project, they should call the planning department. We'll have the answers. Don't try to get your answers on Facebook.
No?
Get them from the.
That's my go-to source.
Get them from a source that hopefully you trust, the planning department.
So one more project that we have here in the environs, in the general vicinity of the Gulf of Weymouth behind us, is the Fort Point Seawall, and we would be remiss not to mention what's happening over there. As folks know, we did a project further up on Fall River Ave, beautiful seawall project over there that had been kind of on the drawing board here in the town for decades. Not a lot of attention was given to seawalls. There've been some grant programs that have been initiated by the state. There's one that we utilized for the Fall River Ave seawall. There was a program that I was the Senate sponsor of that we set up back in my days in the Senate, and I was excited to see us go after funds to do the Fort Point seawall. We had a little bit lack of cooperation over there in getting easements because half of the road is privately owned. Some of the owners did not want to give up that situation. They were concerned about the height of the wall, even though it was a significant improvement to help protect their homes. But we had a couple of holdouts, and over time, they eventually saw the light, and we finally were able to get final sign-offs. That took a couple of years. That took some time. We did get a grant for the design work through the state dam and seawall grant program, the one that I just mentioned. And then once we got the engineering done on that, we've been trying to piece together funding, and that's another little jigsaw puzzle of funding that we put together. We do have the design work complete, the engineering is complete, and the permitting is wrapping up for that. So what we've identified in terms of funding, we have, in addition to the 130 we got for the preparedness grant, which did help with the design work, we got $3 million in state funding, and we have applied for $11 million in federal funding. And that is through FEMA also, and that's the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant. We're hopeful on that. We'll see with the turbulence in Washington how that plays out. But it so far looks like the FEMA funding is stable from what we can tell. The design work that we did, it's interesting to note also that that was kind of a jigsaw in funding for that. We had $130,000 from the MVP program, that's the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant. We had another $98,000 from FEMA, and then we got $103,000 from the dam and seawall program that I mentioned for all of the design and engineering work. So it's a real kind of struggle to piece these things together often, in addition to what we're able to come up with at the local level. But most of these projects, we've been very lucky on our very aggressive actions and going after not only state grants, but the federal grants and working with the Congressman's office on that. So we move ahead here in the Gulf of Weymouth. Any final thoughts on seawalls, on dams, on anything?
Just one final thought. So all these grants the mayor is mentioning are construction and design grants, but they all start with planning grants. So if we didn't have a vulnerability planning plan done, we wouldn't be eligible for some of these grants. So I just want everyone to realize that, not to toot the planning department's horn here, but the planning department has been trying to keep up to date on all the planning documents that need to be in place before we even can apply for design funds or construction funds. So there's a lot of work that no one sees in the planning process with community meetings and getting input on what should be in the plan and what are hazards in the community and what areas of the town are all vulnerable. But we wouldn't be able to apply for those implementation grants without the planning being done.
And one word before we close out here. Luciano, the contractor, they're doing a great job so far.
Yes.
I think that's the consensus.
Yes, absolutely.
The cooperation that they're providing the neighbors, from what the feedback I'm getting, has been good. And what's interesting about Luciano is the noise you hear behind me is they're operating a loader and an excavator and dropping stone, and the owner of the company is operating that piece of equipment right now. He doesn't like office work. He likes to be in the field, and he's quite the craftsman when it comes to stone placement. And all of the stone revetment placement is being done by the owner of the company himself.
Wow,
so pretty amazing.
That is good.
So it's interesting to watch.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you tuning in again, this segment of Development Update on all things related to the Wessagusset Walk. And I don't know if Jeff's chopping up the other ones and going to be separate segments, but all things Gulf of Weymouth.